Hello, 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 and welcome to the Alert Factor. We are here today. We're going to be talking about everything commercial real estate, where we are, where we're going, what the trends are. And we have two guests that will be telling us everything we need to know how to prepare for the coming markets, the future of commercial real estate. So, in a few minutes, we'll have Ms. Latanya Howard of Howard Corporate to talk to us, and then we'll have Mr. Tracy Edwards from Sterling Commercial Real Estate. So, Latanya Howard, how are you doing today? How are you
I
doing?
am
Welcome.
fabulous, Miss Nancy Alert. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm doing great. So, I am so glad you're able to make it here so we can talk a little bit about your wheelhouse, right?
Sure, sure.
Commercial
Thank you
real
for the
estate.
invitation.
Right. Okay. So tell us a little bit, just a little bit about you, how you got into commercial real estate.
So it's a really interesting path that I took. Like a lot of entrepreneurs that I know, I started off in the corporate world. In my case, primarily government is my background, financial management in the government arena. And there was an event that I'll say occurred in that arena. And it just caused me to pivot and just rethink what I wanted my professional future to look like. And as a result of that change, I became a user of service office space. And when I say service office space, there are a lot of different terms: executive suites, co working, shared workspace, all the same thing for purposes of our discussion today. But as a result of that initial pivot, I became a user of service office space. At the time, I had a very small budgeting boutique consulting firm, and I got tired of working at home or in a library. So somehow or another, I learned about a service office space provider near my house. And I was so impressed. And I found the benefit of using service office space so great for my business that I decided that, look, I want to do this myself. I want to become a service office space provider. So I did some research. I did all of my due diligence, found a place that I could call home for my business back in 2012. And that's where Howard Corporate Center began. In April was when I registered of 2012 in Laurel, Maryland. So 10 years later, 10 plus
Yeah.
years later, I'm still operating Howard Corporate Center. Like many businesses, I've had lessons learned and bumps along the way, but I'm excited to say that 10 years later, I'm still here. And it was because of the shared workspace business and feedback that I got from customers and opportunities that presented themselves that I decided to become a licensed commercial real estate agent. So the commercial real estate, the more formalized traditional real estate path that
Came
I'm on
after.
was an outgrowth of the service office space model.
Okay. And I love the fact that you say, I help you find a home for your business, right?
Yes.
Because, like,
Yes.
we're always finding homes in the residential end of it. We're finding homes for the people, but you're finding homes for their businesses. I like that. I really,
Yeah, and
really
you
like
know,
that.
I have to say that it all comes back to Nancy. All roads lead to Nancy one way or another, because I decided to phrase it as a home for your business as an outgrowth of trying to refine my BNI 30-second pitch. And you and I, or at least I wouldn't be a part of BNI chapter that I'm a member of, National Harbor, if it wasn't for you. So,
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
but it's also, you know, that comes from just wanting to relate to people in terms that they can understand. Because for some people, commercial real estate can seem very esoteric and very foreign and very complex, and it really
No,
doesn't
I'm
have to
taking,
be.
yes,
So
yes.
why don't I just phrase it in a way that people can relate to? The same way that you get a professional to help you
Mhm.
find a home for your family, I can help you find a home for your business.
Perfect. Perfect. I love that. So I know you used to have a show, the C Suite. Do you still do the show, the C Suite?
Not at this moment. I still do certain aspects of the show. I still have a
Mhm.
Facebook page that I post to periodically. I was, as you and I talked about offline, I had a studio that I was using within the city of Laurel. And shortly before
Mhm.
COVID, I decided to pivot to focus on some other projects. And then when I was ready to get back online, COVID was in full effect. So it's something
Right.
that I do want to reactivate. and get more engaged with, but I need to figure out what model do I want to go back to. Do I want to go back to an in-studio model that I had before, or do I want to do something like this format, which I think is a very usable one and a very accessible one. So I still have the show, but the show is not fully active right now, but it will be again.
Okay. And what I like about this format is you can talk to anybody from anywhere, right?
Exactly.
So you can have a guest that's in California, right?
Exactly.
You don't have to get on a plane. So that's one of the good things. So tell me a little bit about your book. Kill the Rent, Grow Your Biz.
Yes, Kill the Rent, Grow Your Biz. I wrote my first of 2 books in that series in 2018. And similar to my becoming a commercial real estate agent, how that was an outgrowth of what I learned from being a service office provider. The same is true for my book, because what I realized and what I learned is that even though the shared workspace industry has been around for 40 plus years, it is still a novel concept to so many people. The marketplace is actually saturated with so many different options, but I still, even to this day, still come across people who it's still a novel concept.
They did not
know that they could have a quote unquote real corporate address instead of using a PO box. They didn't know that they could rent out a conference room for an hour or a day, whatever the need is, versus working in a coffee shop or something else. So,
and is that part of what you teach? Do you teach that? Because I think a lot of businesses need to know that certain things that you're trying to do, you won't be able to do it if you have a PO box as opposed to an actual corporate address. Because I know things like if you're trying to register with SAMS to do business with the government, you need an actual business address.
That's absolutely correct. And that is one of the many things that I talk about in my book. So again, learning about the knowledge gap that existed in the marketplace, that's what prompted me to write my first book in 2018. And at that time, and I believe it's still the case today, there is not another book on the marketplace, in the marketplace, that talks about service office space from the perspective of the user. There are books out there that talk about how you can start your own workspace or how you can maximize it, but nothing that I've seen that will help the user navigate the marketplace and identify, how do I, from this very saturated marketplace, how do I decide which one is the best for me and what types of questions should I ask? But yes, to your specific point, one of the things that I do address in my book is how there are some limitations to having a PO box. Like you mentioned, the federal government won't even allow you to register, using a PO box. They want you to have a quote unquote real address. And even for those people who decide to get something like a mailbox service, I won't say any names because I don't want to. I'm not here for that. But if you get something that appears to have a corporate address, but it really isn't, if someone were to do a Google search, right, or do Google Earth, they will quickly realize, this person isn't in the building, they're in a retail strip. So that's what that really is. And for some businesses, that matters. It depends on what customer you're trying to attract. But I think even more than that, what type of impression are you trying to give, even for yourself as the owner of the business?
Right. And do you think that right now might be a resurgence? You might want to remarket your book because, especially with COVID, right? Everybody now is looking at the shared office space and wanting to know, I want to do my business, but I don't want to do it in the house because maybe I have a small space at the house. This might be a good thing for you.
That brings me to my second book. I actually wrote a second book at the end of 2020 called Kill the Rent, Grow Your Biz after COVID-19. So it was really right on point with that. So again, all roads come back to Nancy Alert, right?
All right. Well, thank you, LaTanya. So we're
my pleasure.
Take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with you.
The next year I went back, I ended up winning and became I got the Marvin Sims Award, which is like the best diverse actor. And they called my name, and as I walked to the stage, white kids was throwing books at me. Real talk, right off the top of the balcony, like, because this black boy won.
And then finally, one day I was just cooking in the kitchen, and she was like, "Mommy, so-and-so touched me on my private parts like this," And it was that moment where, I had that moment where I told my mom, And my mom was the one that shut me down, and I had a choice, to make.
I shot back. But you can't claim self-defense when you got an illegal firearm and you 16 years old.
I remember my brother right here. He was selling, he was doing this, but he got a break. He could have took that money and flipped it. He could have went back, Wake and Wire money, 17 episodes. I could flip that.
Even on the out there, I did not flip. He didn't flip the wire, but I went straight. I'm bad.
I was a single friend for 6.5 years, and I was going through my situationships. Y'all know the situationships, men. Then I found, just like for myself, again, like, oh girl, you still recovering from your childhood. Like, what you about to do with a man right now?
I had an agent, sometimes some years after that, tell me that if you don't do nudity, you're not a real actress.
So did they get fired? So let's
Should have got fired that way.
Everybody's laughing. They're like, oh my God. They go, okay, great. Are you SAG? I was like, nah, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm black.
And everybody did that.
Like, we can pick up the sides right now and start going. I know this group that I'm with is about that. We're about that. Like, I'm about the work. You know what I mean? Like,
chasing Hollywood industry.
Who chasing?
So I saw Chasing Hollywood. I was like, yo, we don't have to change that name and do something because niggas don't own chase.
I feel like we're living. That's the term that Hollywood uses.
It's not about just today and me and blah, blah, blah. What we are doing is being documented. Our grandkids, our great-great-grandkids can see how we all walk, talk, sound, look in our prime. And, something about that is very beautiful. And I think that is another element that kind of attracted me to it, is that it never dies. You never die through this art form.
This is the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. Housing market cooling down a bit as mortgage rates rise.
Everything was moving very quickly up until the beginning of April. And now we see buyers really taking a collective deep breath and a pause.
Ben Dixon is real estate broker at Douglas Elliman.
It went from some very strong sellers markets feel a bit more balanced at the moment.
And Dixon says even the bidding wars are cooling down a bit.
We really saw the height of that at the end of 2021 and even the beginning of this quarter. Part of that was the fear of interest rates rising and buyers rushing frantically sometimes to lock in those rates and lock in those prices and being okay to pay a little bit more than the purchase price.
A growing number of home sellers are cutting prices in response, although at this point it still remains a seller's market. And that's the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. This
We are back. We're back. You're watching The Alert Factor, and I am Nancy Alert. And we are talking today about real estate, commercial real estate to be exact. I have two fabulous guests on the show today. Next up, we will have my good friend, my very good friend, Mr. Tracy Edwards, to talk to us about commercial. Tracy, how are you?
What's going on, Nancy? Alert, not alert, but alert.
That's right. So Tracy Edwards is the managing director over at Sterling Commercial Real Estate, and he's also a co-founder of Sterling. Yes, Commercial Real Estate.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about you, Tracy. You know, I know a lot about you because we started way back in the residential age when I was your mentor for residential real estate. And I
I
think
learned a lot from you. Yes. Yes.
Well,
So,
thank
you know, I
you.
got started at Wyckoff back in the day with you as my mentor. I learned so much from you, and yes, it was great. And then my best friend, who was a gentleman by the name of Stacy Malam, who still works for Marks and Millichap, asked me to come on and work for Marks and Millichap. I said I'd never done it before, but it was a challenge. And this was June of 2008. So we know what happened then.
Yeah. That was
Yes.
the time to hop over.
Yes, it was the start of the recession. So it was a good time to get in a sense that I learned a lot. Because what happened was a lot of the owners and sellers, they didn't know what was going on in the marketplace, so they took my phone calls. And so I developed relationships while learning and getting information from them as well as learning from each other. So fast forward another 5 years, I get with another company, just learn more and extending my knowledge. And then another 5 years after that, I started commercial real estate with a man, and you know, Carlos Garcia.
Right.
Matter of fact, you did the introduction.
I introduced you to. Wow,
Yes,
wait a
we
minute.
talked it out, and we both had the same vision of what we want to do and how we want to run a business, and and that's where we are. But in the whole 14 years, it's been one big learning curve. I wouldn't trade it for the world because there's been some lumps, some bruises, but the actual knowledge, relationships have been the best. So that's the good thing about it.
And that's one of the great things about commercial real estate, because commercial real estate is unlike residential because it's all about the relationships, right? It's all about building those relationships so that when you're ready, because there's no multiple listing necessary for commercial. And if it's in there, it's not that great of a property anyway, because if it's really good, it's the word of mouth will get it sold in a minute, right?
Yes. Brokers tend to keep it because they know a bunch of buyers. We all shop and fish from the same pond. So we know all the buyers or developers. We all know each other. So when you get something, you already have those numbers to call.
Okay. So about 10 years in, you're doing this. And I find it so interesting. Like when you started in real estate, I was your mentor. And now you're actually mentoring me in commercial real estate. This life is so interesting, isn't it?
It is because there's no one. It comes in all variations. There's so many variations to it. There's so many avenues you could go down road. You can lease, you can sell, you can do property management, you can develop. There's different avenues that you can go down, and there's all different types of people that you're going to come across. So there's no one set way to be a commercial real estate broker. There's all different things you can do. If you don't feel like being on the other side, you can be in the property management side.
Right.
So it just depends on what you want to do and what makes you comfortable.
So tell me, if you had to choose, I think I know the answer. Residential, commercial, real estate. Which one do you prefer and why?
Commercial. No, first of all, I don't work on Saturdays and Sundays anymore. Well, at least I don't show properties.
After 5, you don't work after 5, right?
Yeah, so I do work after 5. Commercial is a bigger challenge only because I get to use my creativity more, and it's more relationship based. And I'm a people person. Right. I like to connect with folks, and that's probably the best thing with commercial. Residential, you're selling a house. You can do a listing, you do all the stuff, but at the end of the day, you're just selling a house, and that's not a knock. I'm just saying that's the task.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's the task. Yes, commercial. It's like you can do different things. You can partner. You can do some seller finance. It's all types of creativity that comes with it, and it's always a challenge. I've taken some lumps. It's way harder, should I say? But it's like I said, it's like anything else. You just got to learn it and go with the flow.
It's harder, however, and it also takes longer for a commercial transaction to come to its completion. However, when it does, it's good, right?
Yes. Well, you earn your money. As I say, you earn your money.
you earn your money, but it's good money.
Yes, it is good, but it's earned. But by the time you're done, you've done enough blood, sweat, and tears for everybody. So so it's not like you sell something, you get this money. When you sell it, you've actually sold it because you've put in the time. So that's what you get from it. And it, like I said, you choose your pain in life. You choose your pain. You're experience pain some way, somehow. You choose your pain. I just choose this pain. That's all.
Okay. And when you said that the relationship building, right? with the commercial, you not only have selling the commercial space, but the fact that you have to be so creative. I mean, I'm very creative when it comes to the residential space. And I got that from dealing with the commercial space as well, right? Because you're so creative in the financing and the deal, whether it's a development, whether you want to have a partner, or whether you just want to have, I mean, it is, and I like it, it's so exciting too, right? Because there's so much you're doing. You're building a whole community, or you're taking down a hotel. I mean, these are very exciting. I mean, I love that.
There's always multiple options of the way you can do something. And if it doesn't work one way, it may work another. And the deal is never really dead until, you know, you've probably gone on 10 different roads until you say, okay, well, I can't do it. But for the most part, there's always alternative ways to do something. And that's what makes it good, because you got to figure it out.
Okay.
And then you're better for the next deal. That's the cool part, is the learning process. So the next time it comes up, you've already done it. So now you just pass that knowledge on and you acquire more knowledge. So that's the cool part about it. But it's always going to be a challenge. It's just what it is, because it's super competitive. Obviously, if there's a lot of money involved, it's super competitive.
Okay, so you love it, you enjoy it, and you won't do anything else, commercial real estate, but maybe if you had a TV show, a talk show, I don't know.
I'm not as charismatic as you are, so I don't know if I can get a TV show. But no, at some point, I want to venture into development and build. What yet, I do not know, but it's something that would help the community. But I'm definitely going to build, and I'm working. That's my next project in the next year or so.
Okay.
To venture out into development.
All right. So, well, thank you very much, Mr. Tracy Edwards.
Well, thank you for having me.
We'll take a short commercial break, and then we'll be back with both Tracy and Latanya, and we'll talk about the commercial real estate space, where we are, where we're going, what we can expect, what is on the rise, what's the trends. All right, we'll take a commercial break.
All right.
This is the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. Watch for some of those hotter housing markets to cool off most as mortgage rates rise, especially if the job markets in those areas also slow. Mike Fratantoni is chief economist at the Mortgage Bankers Association.
So the Mountain West, which has been the recipient of a lot of inbound population moves, has been the strongest part of the country. And those areas that are either seeing population outflow or not as robust job markets, that's where you saw home prices increasing, but not as rapidly. And the same thing's going to happen now, but we've just reset the whole scale, right? So now if nationally home prices are going to be growing at 2 or 3%, you're going to see some of those weaker markets, those are going to be, break even or even some small declines in some cases.
Meantime, Redfin says builders have been cutting prices in some Texas, Arizona, and Florida metros. And that's the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise.
I'm Charles Meriday, and I'm in the restaurant business. In my 20 years as a chef and restaurant owner, I've been able to work and eat in some of the great kitchens around the globe. There's a whole side of the restaurant that most people will never get to see. So now, I want to take you to the back of the house, into kitchens of some of the best chefs in the world. Along the way, I'll share some of my own tips and recipes so you can cook like a pro too. So join me in the back of the house for a whole new perspective on cooking and food. Order in. Roger. Serve it, please. I'm glad that you came, please.
We're back. You are watching the Alert Factor. I am Nancy Allert. I'm a real estate broker in the DC metro area. And joining me today is Ms. Latanya Howard and Mr. Tracy Edwards. They're both commercial realtors in the DC metro area. And we're going to be talking real quick about the commercial industry right now, post, during COVID. I don't even know. People say post-COVID. We're still in it. I don't even know why people are saying post-COVID. We're still in it.
We're out of the worst of it so far. We hope, yes.
Right.
We're post-surge. We're post-COVID surge.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're talking about pre-COVID, COVID, and post-COVID surge. And we're talking all about what's going on in the commercial real estate industry. All right, before we get to that, just wanted to mention to you guys, realtors, commercial realtors, residential realtors, check us out at realestatelistings.info. If you go to the marketplace or go to RTV network, rtv.network, and you can go to realestatelistings.info and input your listings so the world can see it, and it's for free right now. So take advantage. All right. So commercial. So I think it's fascinating or interesting, at least, that Latanya, you started your commercial venture by offering shared space. And the fact that we're all in shared space right now is almost like, ooh,
yeah,
I did that at the right time. So tell me, but first, how do you feel about that? Because you did it at the right time where you were able to get your building, get your space where you're renting it out to others. And now there's an influx of people looking for shared office spaces.
Well, that's an interesting question, because even before COVID, there was a change in how, at least in the office space industry, some landlords were segmenting their spaces, because we were once at a time where there would be these, businesses would have entire plates of buildings, an entire 15,000 square foot floor, or sometimes multiple 15,000 square feet floors. But even before COVID happened, I personally witnessed a shift in landlords wanting to break down their spaces into smaller units, sometimes called spec suites, to accommodate a shift in how people were working. People didn't have this need for this large space anymore. The shift was happening even before COVID. But I would say now that many businesses are now in this hybrid model, and at least in the office industry, there's a lot more vacancy than there was before COVID. I think that the office space industry in particular is kind of like in this state of flux. Now, of course, this is going to vary by geography, because the trends that you might see in the Washington, D.C. area might not necessarily be the trends that you see in the Midwest or out West, all the way out West. Similarly, when you consider that there are different commercial real estate products, not only office, but you have retail, you have industrial, you have multifamily, Nancy, which I know is kind of one of your sweet spots, you're going to see differences in trends even within commercial real estate product, plus geography. But to answer your question, or to address your question specifically about office space, I think the trend actually began before COVID, but of course it became more exacerbated. There might be some opportunities in terms of availability in the office space product that may not necessarily exist in industrial, because industrial is just hot. You cannot find anything industrial.
Yes.
But industrial is hot. So if you are in the market for an industrial space, get it together, because you know, first of all, if you have it, keep it. But you know,
I'm glad you mentioned that.
You're exactly right.
That's where we're going to go, because I'm going to ask you, Tracy. This is where I was going to go, and I'm so glad you talked about that, LaTonya. Industrial space is where the commercial is exploding. So, and I know partly it's because of Amazon and Walmart and all, because they need all these warehouses and stuff like that. So what's your thought, Tracy, on if you have land or if you have industrial space, how you treating it right now?
If you have industrial space right now, you have gold, period. It's just what it is. I mean, like you said, between fulfillment centers and storage and supply chain issues and stuff, if you have industrial space, you have absolute gold. And it's great because you can rent it out and you don't do much to it. It's just space. You might put an HVAC in, you might not. Some heat. It's just a big slab walls, and that's it. So you charge all this money, maintenance is low, and people stay. So it's absolute the perfect time to own industrial space. And if you're looking for it, good luck. If you have land and want to build it, I would build it right now, because we're getting more stuff, more people. So it's not going anywhere.
Is that what you would say, Tracy, that right now, because the industrial space is so much in demand, and seriously, like you guys said, you can pretty much write your ticket if you have a warehouse, large warehouse industrial space that you want to lease out or even sell. I personally would think that you would want to just lease it out right now and not sell it, because you can make so much.
Well, it depends on the number. We all got a price. You know, the building's worth 10. Somebody says, I'll give you 15 for it. Well, it's yours. Yes, you all have a price. You know, so it depends, and also depends on where you are in life. If you've had the space for 40 years, 30, 40 years, you may want to get out. So there's a whole lot of factors how you want to play that. But we all have a price. But
so, And just to piggyback on what Tracy just said, you always have to be mindful of your objective, right? Because when we hear about these different trends in the marketplace, people immediately think, oh, I have to do this or I have to do that, and look at it in terms of a broad stroke, but not necessarily. You have to consider your objective. Going to Tracy's point, you know, if you have industrial right now, it might be, you might have an advantage if you want to lease it out, but you also have to keep in mind that when you lease it out, you're dealing with tenants now. Do I want to get a property manager? So there's more to it than just selling it or just leasing it. So you want to look at the whole scenario and figure out what is your strategy and how can you leverage what's happening in the market to help you achieve that strategy.
Exactly. How can you leverage it? Because you might be at a point where you can't really sell it, because if you sell it right now, because I have a client with a situation like that, if you sell it right now, you don't want to buy anything else, but you got all this taxes you have to pay. So you don't
you want to be familiar with the 1031 exchange, and you
don't want to do the 1031.
It's the entire
another headache.
Exactly. Because Uncle Sam is going to get his part of that capital gain if you have one. Just understand that. So you want to be
exactly. So other than if you don't want to pay the taxes, but then you still now have to still become and continue to be an investor, because the only way to not pay the taxes is do a 1031 exchange if you're going to be selling your commercial space. So if you want to be out of it, then you're just going to have to pay the taxes.
Right.
That's what it is. What it is. But right now, would you guys say that the commercial industry is in a different direction than where the residential industry is or going? Because right now we're stable as far as the residential industry, because, you know, the interest rates are high. So we don't have 20 offers to a single property and 30 offers to a single property anymore. You get one and people are upset with one, even though one is all you need.
Yes.
We got used to getting 40 offers. So right now, stable because of the high interest rate. Where would you say the commercial is right now, the commercial industry?
Well, you got to remember, it's two different objectives. Residential, you want to sell a house. Commercial is income driven, period.
Yeah.
It's all about the income. And so that's what it is. I mean, multifamily, obviously, rents are up. So multifamily is high. Rents are up and housing prices are up, which means folks can't afford to buy homes, which means they got to rent. So rents are going to stay up for now because if the housing prices keep on going up and interest rates go up, then less people are going to buy houses, so they got to rent. So office, like Latanya said earlier, offices, they're in a tough area right now. Now, suburban office right now, for all intent and purposes, is dead. Nobody's building suburban office.
Right.
Unless you get a spec. Yeah, outside that, unless you get a spec owner, outside of that, it's not happening. Retail is coming back, I think, because folks are finally going out again. So there's a lot of retail that's happening, and it's mixed in with multifamily. So that's where we are right now. And industrial.
So I think the multifamily it's always been the best. If you're thinking about investing, it's always been the best. But I believe all of a sudden, everybody knows it's the best now. Everybody on the market knows that multifamily is where you should be if you want to create wealth, if you want to never have to pay a mortgage ever in your life again. Multifamily, you want to leave generational wealth, you want to stay wealthy, multifamily. So what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about some multifamily. When we return, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
This is the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. Rising mortgage rates triggering a slowdown in some parts of the Southern California housing market. Rick Sharga is Executive Vice President of Market Intelligence at Adam Data Solutions.
It looks like markets like LA County and San Bernardino County are taking longer to sell properties right now than areas like Orange County and San Diego. Riverside, somewhere in between those.
And Sharga says some regions will continue to be more vulnerable than others.
LA is one of those markets where the unemployment rate is still a little bit higher than national average, whereas other parts of Southern California, like Orange County and San Diego County, pretty much fully recovered from the COVID recession.
Even so, Sharga says the price cuts you're hearing about, they're probably nothing to be too concerned about at this point.
What's interesting is even with those list price reductions, the sale price is actually still up on a year-over-year basis.
And that's the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
So nice, so nice. So nice, so nice. Virgin Islands nice.
I used to watch BET, MTV, VH1, now I watch Tempo. Soca, Calypso, Reggae Dancehall. Don't stall, better get tuned in to the tempo. Don't have cable, they got an app. Go to your app store, download that. Whether it's tourism, cuisine, or the social scenes, if it ain't Tempo, it's a rap. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. Mr. Latest in Caribbean news? Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too? Tempo. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. Mr. Latest in Caribbean news? Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too? Tempo.
You know you are a hot one. We are lime, we are laugh, we are chat, we no chill, we are hot one. Temperature rise, beer vibes in ya, this a hot one. Link up, connect, bust a sweat when you're dead from the hot one. We gonna spice it up like fire.
All right, we're back. We're back. You're watching The Alert Factor. I am Nancy Allard, real estate broker in the DC metro area. And we're talking today with Latanya Howard and Tracy Edwards, commercial real estate brokers in the area. So when we left off, I was just talking about creating wealth with real estate, because that's what I talk about all the time. Multi-units. Tracy, I know that is what you deal with on a daily. Multi-units. So tell us, if you are looking to enter into the commercial real estate investment arena, what would your recommendation be to an investor right now in these times? What would you recommend to them?
Run. No. No, I would tell them to start off with something small. Get something that's already renovated, okay? Because you want to start off, you don't want to start off already in debt and you have to spend money. Get something already renovated that's small, 6 units, 4 units, and go from there. Because what people don't realize, owning an apartment building sounds sexy until you got to fix stuff, until you got to deal with tenants, until you got to deal with the local jurisdiction, until you get something happens, and then you're like, oh my goodness, all the headaches come. So it sounds sexy to say, oh, I own a 600 apartment building, until somebody needs something, until you have 2 months of an empty apartments and you don't get rent from that. So all that comes into play. So just take all those factors into play if you want to buy something. It's not as sexy as it sounds, but it's worth it.
Yeah, so to address that, wouldn't that be, though, part of what you do as the creative commercial real estate broker? You will definitely do your research, make sure that where your client is buying that multi-unit is going to be consistently rented and they're not going to have any issue. You can always have some kind of issue. This is why you calculate 25% vacancy, right? Because you know there's going to be a couple of vacancies.
Yeah.
But if you buy the right property, and let's say you have 16 unit, right? Even if 4 or 5 units are vacant, you should still not have an issue if you did it right. You should still have your debt being taken care of and making some money, right?
Well, we have what's called the human factor. You don't know how human beings perform. Not to mention, we don't know what the buyers got going on the other side. They may have another property that's leveraged that depends on the property they just bought. We don't know. So we have to tell them, look, here's what can happen. So we give them the dark side and say, okay, then we give them the light side. But because it's not always, champagne and strawberries. And I let them know what they want.
But it could be, right, Latanya? It could be champagne.
Well, Nancy, I might have to side with Tracy a little bit here. Don't come get me. Don't come get me, Nancy. But look, I think it's important to manage expectations and to kind of go back to something that we talked about before we went on the last break. Nancy, I believe you asked a question about, are there any parallels in the commercial area as we see in the real estate area? And even though they're different, there are some similarities to the extent that interest rates can affect the commercial industry space the same way. So just as the commercial real estate industry, just as interest rates had just gone up and it's affecting the housing market, to some extent that could affect the commercial market too, if you're someone who's financed, whatever the case may be. But going to the piece about buying, because interest rates have gone up and because there's less of a buyer demand now might be a good opportunity to buy something, right? Because a seller, because they may not be getting multiple offers now, they may be willing to entertain deeper negotiations. However, that still goes back to the notion of having a strategy. While multifamily does have its benefits, to your point, Nancy, about having multiple units within a particular single building, you have to be mindful of what your end game is, how long it's going to take you, and how much pain you have to go through to get there. And are there other opportunities to get into the commercial space without necessarily doing multifamily? For example, I'm beginning to dabble into property management myself, property management, and I have a landlord. She owns an office condo. right? And she's leasing it out. That's a very easy way to get into the commercial real estate space if that's something that you want to do. And it doesn't have to be very time consuming. You don't have to deal with all the different personalities and all those other types of things. So be mindful of what your end game is. What is your temperament? Be honest with yourself about that, about what you're willing to deal with and what you're not willing to deal with, and see what types of options might, happen for you.
You're absolutely correct, right? Because you have to decide. It's sort of like there's that saying, he who chases three, he who chases three rabbits.
Pick your poison, right? Choose your pain, right?
Right, because I use pick your poison, choose your pain. I usually say, he who chases three rabbits is hungry, because you can't chase three rabbits. You can't, right? You have to chase one. So you have to decide, if I'm going to be in the commercial space, what part of the commercial space I'm going to be in. Just like residential, you could be in wherever. The
condo, space, single family, townhome,
luxury, beachfront, whatever, right?
Exactly.
You can
Urban,
suburban, horse farms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in commercial, you can say, I'm going to do property management. I'm only going to do small retail. I'm only going to do office space. There's so much you can do. But at the end of the day, you need to know your numbers, put it together so you can tell your client how you're going to make their money, because they're not emotionally attached to that building, to that strip mall, to that land, to that industrial space. They're emotionally attached to how much money I'm going to be making if I purchase this property. Am I going to be making money now? Am I going to be making money next year? Am I going to be making money now and next year? So what would you say when you tell an investor, this is why you should buy this property? Because you're making the money now, you're making the money in 5 years, or you can make some money now and a lot of money later.
I'm like Latanya. I manage expectations. Like I had a client that said they wanted an 8 cap. I said, no, that's not happening. You're not finding anything with an 8% cap. Because if it were, I would buy it and sell it myself. That's what happened. But I manage expectations, and I let them know, see what their end game is, and go from there. Right. And because everybody has a different, some people may want to hold, some people may want to flip, some people may want whatever. I find out what their end game is and go from there. And I tell them the real deal. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't make it like, oh, you're going to do all this money. I said, you could lose money, but here's how you're going to make the best ways to make money if you listen to me. But I give them the whole rundown. So I give them the truth. Yeah.
And I know you do, because Tracy is Mr. Math Guy. The man is brilliant when it comes to math, when it comes to the numbers.
And I think something else, I think along those lines is when we're educating our clients, because I've talked to you about this, Nancy, I think in BNI, but I think it's really important to educate people as they go along in the process, because I like people to come out of the process empowered, right? I'm there to help them, but you need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. But one of the things that I want people to remember, your listeners to remember, is that not only can you be a seller of real estate or a buyer of real estate, but you can also lease it. You can also be a tenant, right? So even though when we talk about investing, some people immediately go to, okay, I'm going to buy a building. You can consider it to be an investment if you're going to lease a space, if you're just trying to get your business off the ground, because it's still money. It's still money that's coming out of your pocket into somebody else's. So you're investing in your business, and maybe the best strategy for you will be to start off as a tenant, or maybe share a workspace or something else. But it's about, like Tracy said, giving them the totality of their options so they can decide the best course to achieve their end game.
Nicely said. Thank you very much.
Well said.
Now we're about to wrap up. I would like for you each to tell the public how they can reach you. If you're looking for commercial real estate in DC, Maryland, Virginia, Tracy Edwards, give your information. How can we reach you?
You can reach me at Tracy Edwards, 571-249-6463, or go to www.sterlingcre.net.
All right. So Tanya, how can we reach you?
People can reach me at howardcorporate.com, and my office number is 301-837-0040. Don't want to mess that up. And you can also find me on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yes, and LinkedIn as well.
Thank you very much. LinkedIn, find Tracy Edwards and Latanya Howard on LinkedIn or Facebook. If you're looking to rent a shared space, contact Latanya. You're looking to buy, building because Tracy sells those huge multi-units, contact Tracy Edwards. I'm Nancy Allard. I am a real estate broker in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And just for you guys to enter your listings on our website, go to realestatelistings.info. I will see you guys next time. Have a blessed week.
Hmm.